Jack Doohan felt like a last resort for Alpine because there weren't a lot of drivers available at the time. Alpine wasn't a particularly attractive project before their end of season form last year. So they kind of just had no other real option than to put him in the car because there weren't a lot of other suitors out there. Doohan hasn't scored any points and he's got himself involved in a few incidents. However, I do feel that giving him the boot after 6 races, 7 if you want to count Abu Dhabi, is harsh. I do feel like it is harsh. 7 races is not enough time to prove that you are F1 worthy, in my opinion. You know, I think a rookie needs at least 1 full season under their belt to really get into it and show the team what they're worth. However, it's one of those, I think it's circumstance. You know, you don't sign a reserve driver on a 5-year contract unless you are seriously thinking about putting him in that race car. And signing Colapinto on a 5-year deal was always going to be foreshadowing what Alpine's long-term plans were going to be. You know, Colapinto wasn't available at the time. He was still under contract at Williams. So Alpine thought, right, we've got Jack Doohan. Might as well put him in the car, see how he goes. And then if Colapinto becomes available, we can get him as a reserve driver and then just weigh the two up. And I think that's what Alpine have done. And I do think it's harsh on Doohan. You know, it's not like he's been a million miles off the pace. It's not like he's been totally out of his depth. I know he's been involved in a few crashes, but it's not like Gasly has absolutely demolished him. You know, I know Gasly's been the one getting things done, but it's not like we're looking at Doohan and going, oh, this guy is totally out of his depth. What's he even doing in Formula One? You know, I think Doohan has been a lot better than a lot of people thought he was going to be. I certainly thought he was going to be bottom of the grid, struggling every week, but that hasn't really been the case, to be honest. You know, he's been a lot quicker than I expected and a lot of other people have expected too. But it felt inevitable from the start that Alpine were going to use the first excuse to get Doohan out of that car and get Colapinto in, because that was always their long-term plan. And now with Flavio Briatore at the helm and Ollie Oakes resigning, Briatore is just a guy that gets stuff done and he doesn't really care if he hurts your feelings or not. He's just, you know, he's going to do what it takes for what he thinks is the good of the team. And, you know, time will tell if the Colapinto swap works. But yeah, I think Doohan could have been given a bit more time, maybe at least until mid-season. But yeah, they've made the decision and let's see what Colapinto brings to Alpine.